Thank you for the kind words, Will. Again, my name is Mike Kraft. I'm with Ulteig Engineers. Safety is a big portion of our business, so I'd just like to start with a safety topic for the group. I stayed at a hotel last night. I do a lot of traveling, so I thought it was a good topic. These may or may not have happened to me at one point in my life, but we'll roll with it. So check in, make sure you have your valuables close to you, watch your bags. You don't want anybody walking off with them. That one has happened to me. If the attendant gives you your room key and she says your room out loud, ask for a new room. You never know who's listening behind you. It's important for your safety. Also, when checking into your room, make sure the door latches behind you. Often you drop your bags off and you don't really hear that click of the door. It's for your safety. Make sure that room latches. Also, if you have an adjacent room, make sure it's locked. It's always important to double check that. Sometimes that goes unnoticed. Let's see, I have one more here. Yeah, maybe that's all I have. But anyway, hotel safety, we forget about it sometimes. It's an area where you can lose your valuables. It's definitely a safety concern. So again, I'm with Ulteig. I'm their market director for the renewables market. What we call a lifeline sector are our markets. I'll admit I wasn't nervous speaking today until I saw the video camera in the back. So this is going to be new for me. Hopefully the website doesn't last in forever, but we'll see how that goes. So a little bit about Ulteig. We are, as Will mentioned, an engineering consulting firm. Our markets that we serve today are the power, renewables, transportation, and water markets. I really enjoy serving these markets because they're really starting to blend and weave into each other, especially when we start thinking about microgrids. You start thinking about transportation and EV, electric vehicles, and the impacts that they could have or will have on the grid. So I think it's really neat, that we get to talk about the electric grid, but we also get to think about some of these other markets and major infrastructure groups within our nation that are really going to impact what we're all here to talk about today. I'd also like to just take a brief moment again to thank ISU. Transparently, I'm an NDSU grad, North Dakota State. I may have picked the wrong school after listening to the dean. However, we do have a pretty great football team, so that's always good. I'd also like to thank the presenters. I know a lot of work has gone into this. And the committee, thank you for pulling together this inaugural session. I'm really excited about today's topics. They're critical to our business at Ulteig, and they're critical to the industries that we serve. So we started as Ulteig in the early 40s. Our first project was really doing right-of-way acquisition and survey and staking for the REAs back in the early 40s. Mel Ulteig, a company namesake, started that business, and we had the opportunity to grow with the industry, the power industry. Today, we build large transmission lines. We work for independent power producers building wind farms, solar farms, storage facilities. We're also involved in major transportation projects. We have a really great love and passion for major infrastructure, and I just couldn't be happier to be sponsoring today's event, and I'm really looking forward to the topics. So just a couple thoughts on why this is important to the U.S., why this is important to us at Ulteig and the industry, and maybe a personal note of why it's important to me. When I think about the topics today, it was mentioned before, we're really looking for that reliable, resilient, sustainable, and affordable electricity. These topics today are really going to speak to the heart of that. And I just couldn't be happier to hear Aaron's presentation. I did get a brief preview of it. It looks fantastic. I think you all are going to be very happy with the information. For us here at Ulteig, we like solving these problems. So when we think about these large transmission lines, this build out of the future of the next grid is something that we get really excited about, the opportunities that it's going to create and the challenges that are going to need to be overcome. And just a little bit about me. I'm very passionate about renewables. I feel like they have a place in our generation mix. I'm not one that says it's going to be all renewables. I'm an engineer at heart. I'm pragmatic about that. But I do feel like renewables are to play a significant portion of our generation mix. And we need the transmission to integrate those renewables into the system. And so these topics are very dear and near to me. If you go on WEA's website, their number one issue will be transmission constraints, and we run into that today with our clients. So I'm interested in hearing how we're going to roll this out, Aaron. It's going to be really exciting. The other thought that I have is I've done a little bit of travel. I'm not a world traveler, but I've done a little bit of international travel. We're very fortunate in this country to have reliable electricity. Even in developing nations or developed nations, they don't have the same access to reliable electricity, and it really is a hurdle for those countries. And we're very, very fortunate in the U.S. to have the system that we have, that we had that investment in the 50s and the 60s to build this infrastructure out. And we're now talking about that next phase. What are those investments that we're going to make today for future generations? And that's really, really exciting for me. So let's talk a little bit about that excitement. We've seen a lot of growth in the power industry through the transmission investment, through the generation investment. It is a driver, it's an economic driver for the U.S. It creates an incredible amount of jobs, and it also creates an incredible amount of ancillary services in those communities that have these infrastructure projects. Whether it be a small town, service industry, adjacent industries, it's critical for this nation that we invest in these infrastructure projects. And I can't help but think back to the 50s and 60s. Candidly, I probably wasn't even a thought at the time, but when I read enough and I look at the History Channel enough to kind of get excited about those infrastructure projects, you think of the nuclear plants that were built, the interstate system, the airports, the waterworks system. They were a boon for the economy back then, and we had the opportunity today to still reap those benefits. So when we think about the SEAM study and the investment that we could be making, that's an investment for generations to come after us. And I think that's really, really exciting and a point that we can't forget. Major infrastructure takes time, takes a lot of planning, which you'll see today. I'll be remiss by saying it takes a lot of money. So if there's anybody in the group, thank you for sponsoring this, and thank you for investing if you're also looking at it in that sense. But it also takes a lot of communication. And this is a great forum to start that communication. We've seen a lot of infrastructure projects recently who have not done a good job around communication. Near to my area up in North Dakota, the Dakota Access Pipeline, I don't really think they nailed the communication piece. They had a pretty significant challenge on their hands last year. And by the way, there was recently just another pipeline approved in Minnesota. Again, very, very little communication, and we'll see how that plays out. But it's not really looking good for that company. I do wish them the best. I think it's needed infrastructure. You will be hearing a lot of great communication. There's some great presenters. There's some great topics. I just can't thank you for the opportunity again to sponsor this event. I'm going to step aside and get down to the brass tacks here because I got my notebook out. I'm looking forward to the presentations. So thank you and enjoy the conference.